Good morning, fellow soul travelers, planet Earth. Remember that we are on a planet rotating counterclockwise at 1,000 miles an hour, on a planet going around the sun at 50,000 miles an hour, in a universe expanding 1,000,000 miles a second. We live and breathe. Jamie, good morning. How you doing, buddy? We live and breathe with a small sliver of oxygen. And pretty much everything we do, you think about it, look around the world. What is it? Dirt, air, water. Somehow, in the elemental forces of the universe, like electricity, and somehow we manage to manipulate all of this. Jim Kerr, keep posting, buddy. Wayne, how you doing? Good morning. So somehow with those elemental elements and some universal forces, we manage to manipulate our environment and come up with all of this. Cars, houses, planes, smartphones, medical, just everything comes from these basic elements somehow. I mean, go back to the 1700s, early 1800s. We were just barely out of living very close to nature. I mean, we got into the machine age in the 1800s, and we started harnessing power. Of course, that led to all of this in a very short time. Okay. So that's the background. This is another post-workout morning message. My YouTube channel, Rick Boiardi, World Builder. Who do we got here? Melanie Lombardi. It's hard to read these. But good morning to everybody who's watching. I appreciate it as we make our way through this world together. Back to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe, hit the like button, comment, share, and let's get these messages continuing to move around the globe so that people will find the wherewithal in them and understand the power of inside them to change and to develop and change our immediate surroundings, and then we can change the globe as well. So a lot of potential with this social media platform. Okay, today's message. You think that's air you're breathing? In this place. Okay, most people know where that line comes from. Okay, the great and wonderful Morpheus in the Matrix, if you didn't know that. And my thoughts this morning are that we are truly in a matrix. And I know that many of my other videos I've touched upon this subject, and I truly believe it. And what I think happens in today's world is a great awakening going on, and there's a lot of reasons for that. It's because the people that run everything have been pushing this agenda, in part of some of the byproducts of that agenda are global communications and technology. So it's a double-edged sword for them, because we started waking up. And most of the people that are watching my channel, a great percentage of you were born prior to the 1980s. So, you know, a lot of us are 80s kids growing up. What happened is that if you're in that age group, you saw a couple different worlds. You saw the old world when we were all in the Matrix, still living in the Matrix, but happy in it for the most part. Now, I mean, that's a very big generalization, But in the Western world, and particularly in the USA, there's a ton of truth to that, because we were one of the big allies that won World War II. The sleeping giant awoken. We became an industrial monstrosity. Some of the big things that happened, like in the 70s, is petrodollars, which a lot of you don't even know exist. That we coerced Saudi Arabia into forcing everybody to use American dollars to purchase oil. So everybody needed our money, which meant everybody had to trade with us in order to get petrochemicals. In return, we propped up and protected Saudi Arabia and their wealth. Now, that's not to say that people prior to the 80s were asleep. I mean, look at the 60s. People were protesting Vietnam, those poor bastards that got sent over there and chewed up in the violence. You know, they weren't having this, they were not lost in the matrix and fat, dumb, and happy. They were forcibly exposed to an uglier world. But for the most part, you had that dichotomy, and, you know, families were coming out of the 1950s. One parent working, high school degree, support a family for life with a house, two parents married, and you could send your kids to college. Of course, that started changing in the 70s. 1980s, in my opinion, was the coming out party for the elites in the Reagan area. David, good morning. Nice to see you. Thanks for watching. The 90s certainly were an era where the elites just completely grabbed hold of the corporate world and changed everything. You got to remember, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the middle class had a lot of benefits and a lot of power, and there were a lot of things done, social programs that ended up benefiting the middle class. Now, again, there's always exceptions, like if you were in the South and you were black prior to the civil rights movement, you weren't enjoying any of that. I get that. So, you know, for the people who want to point out that there were, it's not across the board. Yes, I'm being very general here and very global, but mostly Western world. And, you know, one thing I'll say is people think that when you were lost in the matrix, there was no way to know what was going on behind the scenes. And the interesting thing is that the elites, everything they do, they broadcast. It's very interesting, but it's very sly. So they'll do imagery and symbology, and they do their Luciferian agenda, and they symbolize it all over the world. And it's ancient. Like an example would be when they opened up the channel from England to Europe, or when they opened CERN. If you see the opening ceremonies, and literally you can watch them, go on YouTube and watch them, and there's a ton of commentary. They were super, super satanic. And again, I'm sidetracking here, but CERN, a lot of people who will talk about CERN is that they are trying to open portals to other parallel universes, and in some cases to access demonic entities for power and control. I know a lot of you people are going to hear this and say I'm absolutely batshit crazy, but I'm not. I've researched this stuff my entire life. It is absolutely out there. It's just that a lot of people are still in the matrix, and that was my big point. And right now it is truly the Great Awakening, and when you awaken to the agenda of the others, you can't unsee it. You can see it everywhere, in everything that goes on. The method of problem, reaction, solution, where these powerful people and their minions design and create problems so that they can get the appropriate public reaction, get the sheeple to react, and then step in with the pre-designed and massively profitable solution. Like, for example, creating a label of ADHD and things like that to get this horrible reaction of people of what is wrong. You know, our world's out of control, people are going nuts, and then they conveniently have the big pharma products with their entire marketing programs, and everything's already been railroaded through their minions and governments to provide these products to the public. I can go on and on for days and days and days, but again, I'm being very general here. You think that's air you're breathing in this place. What that meant was, in The Matrix, in the documentary or movie The Matrix, the people in their daily lives, it was a holographic reality, and they were literally, in the reality, they were all unconscious, and they were plugged into these machines that were generating or utilizing the power in their bodies to run artificial intelligence, which had taken over the world. And human beings knew that was coming, and they tried to scorch the skies so that solar power wouldn't be available to the computers for power. So the computers one-upped us and made us all unconscious and plugged us into this matrix. But to keep us alive, they created this hologram that we lived in, and people believe that to be their reality. And you know what? There's so many documentaries out there and studies that show that we are truly living in a holographic world, a collective one. There's even a guy, and I can't think of his name right now, who decoded the universal intelligence, and he said that it's actually in binary code, and it's the same ASCII code that is used on Earth, on our operating systems. And you know what? That's very possible, because you have to remember that secret societies understand the long view and the true reality of humankind and life, and they keep many things like zero-point energy hidden so that they could keep us focused on producing and consuming and using petrochemicals, for instance, amongst many other things. And so to wake up from the matrix simply means you can see these things. And you know, some other examples, look at Washington, D.C., and look at its design from above. It's all pagan symbolism. It was all the signers of the Declaration of Independence were Masons, and they have the hidden history of mankind. And there are things people don't know, like Washington, D.C. is not part of the United States. City of London is not part of London or the UK. Entities run by the globalists, okay? The people that run every other country in the world, that's what their source is. And the Vatican was the center of fear and religion and a place to hide the spiritual truths. Vatican Archives. City of London was to manipulate and control the world of finance and the privately owned central banks. The territory of Washington, D.C. was the military territory to keep the world at war, ongoing and perpetual. So, waking up from the matrix. Now, look, why am I saying these things? Which, why aren't I saying like something super positive? Well, in a way I am, because if we don't wake up, we're prisoners until they're done with us being prisoners. And I think that where that plays out is that artificial intelligence and robotics is going to put an end to the need of human labor for a lot of people. And they're not going to want us. We're waking up. We're smarter and smarter. We know their game. And they're going to have to shut up and decrease the population to a lower number. If you don't believe that, study the Georgia Guidestones. It's, again, everything these people do is in plain sight. It's everywhere. It's just most people don't realize it because they're busy paying mortgages and things like that, keeping their nose to the grindstone. And again, I'm not saying people are bad. We have souls. We have incredible souls. In fact, humankind is one of the highest life forms there is. But a lot of what we are is suppressed. A lot of what we are is genetically turned off and can be reawoken. So our future is unlimited. We can, return atonement. Okay, the word atonement, at one-ment. We can become one with the powers of the universe again. Okay. So the Matrix. A lot of people don't want to hear these kind of things. A lot of people will laugh and ridicule and point fingers. But, go back to the people that originally started talking about truths, like, for example, the Earth not being the center of the solar system. Bang, burnt at the stake. That was not all that long ago. 1600s, okay? Considering we've only been in the modern age for 100 years. 150 years ago, we were closer in the way we lived to medieval times than we are to the way we live now, okay? So, world is changing. You're obligated to wake up, and it's an interesting time we live in, because are there people like Neo in the Matrix? Absolutely. There are millions of them. They're all across social media, and they talk. But you got to remember, in any of those social media groups, there are agents in there, like in the Matrix, that are there to provoke. Agent provocateurs, trolls. They say things that are specifically designed to create friction and antagonism on those sites. They're there to bring the groups down and get the people that are in the groups so frustrated and tired that they leave the group. They're there to divide. We're there to unite. So anyway, heavy topic, but I say what's on my mind, all with the goal of waking people up, showing them the way to develop personally and to globally transform our world, terraform this world that we're in now, and expand out into the universe, become a solar traveling species, and eventually an interstellar traveling species. Okay? Love to you all. Have a great weekend. Take care. Bye.